Okay, I have 6:30. We're going to go ahead and get started. We've got a few, just a little bit of information to share with you all. Some of you, some familiar faces, we appreciate that you have continued to come out and support us and inform yourselves. And we want to participate in a way that we provide information for you. We want these events to also give you a chance to ask questions, to get clarification, to make sure you just feel very, very informed. And so some people are very comfortable talking on the microphone, and some people are not. So we will give the opportunity. We've got board members that will come around and bring a mic to you. But if you're not comfortable doing that and you have questions, please do not leave. Do not leave. We will stay. We will stay here and we will answer your questions personally if that's what you're more comfortable doing, okay? So, we will begin kind of as we have with other ones. I think it's important always to begin in the beginning because it has been 16 very, very long months. And even those of us who live in the middle of it every single day kind of lose track of that time. And so I have to constantly remind myself to go back, go back, go back. Don't forget what that felt like. Don't forget what that person said. And just remember how we got to where we are today. So the day before the tornado hit, I was actually on a Zoom call with Mike Reich, who the district does some financial advisement through. He works for Raymond James. And so we were talking about how the high school really was in disrepair and that there really were going to need to be some improvements made. And what did that look like financially? Because the Prop Kids 2017 took care of the most immediate needs. They were immediate needs. We were running out of space. And we had a lot of spaces that were just not up to par and not safe. And so the 2017 remodeled the elementary school, built a new primary school, so it allowed that division of the buildings and spread out of the space and fixed the overcrowdedness. And then we built the middle school. And during that time, everybody knows that lovely COVID fell kind of smack in the middle of all that. And so prices went up, things cost more, and some of the things that were slated by the board of the community to get taken care of didn't get done because prices went up and the middle school had to be finished and fully. And so the only things that didn't get done on that list, particularly to that, was the attention to some locker rooms and some athletic field, football field stuff. So we knew that was something that we were going to try to long-term, just capital expenditures figure out. But then the high school started causing all kinds of issues. And so the conversation with Mike that day was like, what can we do? What can we do? We have to do something sooner rather than later. And we all, this is a very faithful community, and we all know that God things happen in our lives every day, but I sure didn't think it would happen that night. So it's very much some divine intervention because we had a tornado that came through, a natural disaster that night. And it caused damage all over campus. Now, there was not a building on campus that was not affected. Some buildings, all the HVAC units were ripped off or flipped over on their sides, or the Career Center, all the shingled roofs on those are just like your regular cap shingled roofs. They were just shredded off. Old Senior High, when you could stand in Craig Hayden's office and see all the way to the sky, it ripped that whole end of that thing off. Blew all the windows out. There were 2 offices, 2 rooms, and that whole entire Old Senior High that did not have the windows blown out. All of the other windows had them. So there was just damage everywhere. But the high school was very different. And I've talked about this, and it just resonates with me over and over, because that night, as we're walking around, it was so dark, because all the power was out on that side of town. And so Wesley and I and my husband we were walking around with flashlights, and there were some other school employees. Dan Corey was with us, Dan Overcrush was with us, and we were walking around, and it was so dark, flashlights. And before we got to the high school, and I think just Wesley and I were over at that point, I could hear things. I could hear popping and cracking and just strange noises from that building. And more and more people were getting curious and coming around. And when I come around that backside, down that gator bowl, kind of down where the nurse's office is, and there were things just falling. And there were teenagers beside us. And they were curious, and they were walking towards it. I'm like, what is that? I was like, I don't know, but get back. What are you doing here? And like, then it was the reality of this is very, very, very unsafe. We've got to, back everybody out, stay off campus, and put all the words out. So that building was just different. It was hit so much harder than anything else on campus. And it takes me back to, like, that's the one we were talking about earlier. And the tornado, nobody got hurt. Everybody was safe. And so if anything was going to happen on campus, it happened to that one. So that's where we are today. So it's been a long 16 months, and we've been wise, and we've made mistakes. We've learned some hard lessons. Our board has been faced with decisions that school boards will never, ever be faced with. And they've done that very carefully and faithfully and intentionally. We've reached out and engaged with professionals because we're educators. I'm not a construction manager. I'm not an insurance adjuster. I'm not a FEMA expert. But I'm smart enough to ask for help from the ones that are. And I think that definitely has been a very wise decision that the board is engaged in. And because of that, we are going forward much better now than where we were in April. So it's been a long process, but here's where we are today. So if you have been able to come onto campus, or if you have not, this is the middle. This is the part where you would turn around from the concession stand and look back towards the building, the science, the libraries on the other side. This is the middle section. And so they are taking this middle section out very, very slowly and carefully so that they can pull the front this direction and then this side this direction safely and keep it away from everybody else around the other campuses so it would kind of go inside. And FEMA is very involved in this process. So in order for this to be a qualifying FEMA project, it has to be managed by them. And managed means if you come by, you're going to see a guy sitting there videotaping underneath a canopy. You're like, what's that guy doing? I want his job. Well, thank God that guy was there on Monday, because we were hit with an anonymous report that we were in a violation of asbestos something, and they called the Department of Natural Resources. And they showed up on campus ready to shut us down. And this guy goes, oh, no. I have everything you need right here. The board and the district has done everything exactly as needed to be, and I am here to prove it. And within 15 minutes, she picked up her clipboard and she said, no violation, great job, thanks, see you later, and she was off campus. And then about 15 minutes later, the news station showed up, so thank God that was done and over with before the news got there. And then we had a little more drama. You all probably saw on the news media later, a couple hours later, we had some more drama on campus. But we have the right people doing this work. But it's going to take time. And it's hard to be patient. So they have to take this down, and all the debris has to be sorted. They can't just pile it up and load it on a truck and it rolls out. They have to sort it out. Metals, electrics, the rubble, and it all goes different places, and all is weighed and tracked and everything, and all of that so that it's FEMA eligible. So we are certain that we get every penny we can back in those reimbursements in that process. So when you see people out in the community, that you could go down kind of on the bus parking lot and see this. There's gates that would keep you back safe enough, so you could go back there if you want to and see kind of this middle process going on. But it is slow. So now if anybody asks, why is it taking so long, you can tell them. FEMA's there making sure that it's done right, and thank God they are. So because of the FEMA designation that we got, that's what makes it different this time compared to what went on the ballot in April. So in April, we were not far enough along. We did not know that we were going to get a FEMA designation. We were hopeful. We had submitted all the paperwork. We had done everything that we needed to do, but the government kept shutting down on us 3 times. And so we would get so far, and we'd be trucking along, and then they would shut down, and when they would come back up, we'd get a brand new project manager. So we'd start the process with that person and get it all going and do everything they wanted, and they shut down again. And so finally the board was forced to make a decision that was just near to impossible. But we had to ask for the whole thing just in case, because we had no guarantee that we were going to get that support. We were confident, but you can't make a decision without something in writing. You wouldn't do that. You would expect the board to do that. We wouldn't want the board to do that. So this time, as finally things open back up, we actually got a guarantee in writing that we will get FEMA support. There's some preliminary numbers out there. Nothing hard yet, but it is much better and was able to give the board the confidence to create a much lesser ask. So this is what the ballot now reads. And so we show some historical tax rates for you to see kind of visually what is, back in 2017, I think the bottom dropped off here just because of the screen, but you can see it where we were set. And then the assessed valuation. As the assessed valuation goes up, if it goes up at a certain rate, the Hancock Amendment kicks in and does a rollback. And so that has rolled us back. That doesn't mean that we're getting less money. We're still collecting enough money to make those payments, but it is a protection for the taxpayer. And so we currently kind of set flat, and then just this last year, we rolled back again. And it's hard. We want our property values to increase. We don't want to be a community where our property values are not increasing. That is absolutely not what we want. And so an increase in the value of where we live in our community is a good thing. And a Hancock Amendment is something that kind of protects that taxpayer from there being a big hike in your taxes. And it keeps the public entities from getting a big landfall of money. We could still get more because new construction, if there's a lot of new construction in town, that is not subject to the Hancock Amendment, so we could still get some growth in revenue if there's a lot of growth and new construction in our community, and it has been. So we've been very blessed for that. So now, the impact on this would be that the levy that's set at 32 cents would go to 54 cents, and that would extend out to 2045. And in 2046, it is expected to be reduced, or sunset is the term that we like to use and call it after that. So it is being tacked on to the current and carried through 2045. This created consistency for the taxpayers so that you would have this solid, consistent versus large hikes and then drops. And so this is consistent and stretched out over time. So it was a savings to the taxpayers. The board looked at a lot of different scenarios, and this scenario was the best one for the taxpayers. And so this one, it also is falling off the screen a little bit. We think this is important and we show it a lot. We share it out with everyone because we like to see where we are compared to others. That's important. We take a lot of pride in our community. We take a lot of pride in what we have and what we're doing and forward thinking. And so we want to see where we are compared to everybody else. So currently, Perry County District 32, the red is where we currently set our tax levy. And if this Prop Kids would pass on August 4th, the proposed one we would set where the green is. There are 3 schools below us on the screen that fell off. It is Potosi, Marquand, and Meadow Heights. So those are the 3 schools that have a lower tax levy. And there's one on the top. I think Scott County Central got cut off the top, and they're at $5 and something. So this is reduced from April by 18, almost 19 cents. Less of a commitment and absolutely more reliance now on FEMA. So it's a $60 million budget, $35 million coming from Prop Kids, and $25 coming from FEMA, insurance, and district funds. And so the $35 million ask is because FEMA is a reimbursement. You have to spend the money, turn in your receipts, and then seek the reimbursement back. And we have already started that process. We have about over 24 different individual FEMA projects. It's not just one big FEMA project. And anything that we have completed and turned in, we show that we've paid for it, we show how much insurance was applied for it, and then FEMA reimburses us back. So FEMA will pay 75% of what insurance didn't pay. So we submit all of that, and then we get it back. And then that gives me money for the next one. And we have, so we get, it flows from FEMA federal to state, and then the money goes from federal to state, and then the money comes to us from the state. So I got a letter again this week, a letter coming from the state. That means money is going to be coming into the bank. So we expect, we've got 2 more small projects that are completed, and that should be coming in, and we'll communicate that out. So that's what's going to get us moving forward. All these little projects and this 35 to come to 60 and to get the reimbursement. This is somewhat of a timeline. If Prop Kids, if what's proposed passes, we're trying to kind of stay on track, and that also was a reason why we went ahead with the demolition. Some people said, no, why did you tear it down before you got this passed? I couldn't use what was there anyway, and it was in the way. And it was just going to slow us down. Get it down, get it out of the way, get it clear, and it's ready to go. Our kids are waiting. We have classes. We've got to graduate out of the building. Everybody's asking about the floor plan. We have a lot of questions about that. In the beginning, it was hard to answer some of those because we hadn't gone far enough along to really figure out exactly. We're getting more and more and more fine-tuned. So you can see in this image, anything that has the red hash marks, that is what was there. And this is what's now going to be on top. So the hash marks would have been spaces that were filled in that now are not going to be. And do we have the boards out? So the boards outside, here out in the hallway, if you want to like kind of get up close and really look and figure out where's the science classrooms, where's the music classroom, where's I want you to spend some time out there, and we'll meet you guys out there. We'll have some people go out there with you and answer any questions that you have about the blueprints. Just important dates, and we've really tried to communicate this out to everybody. August 4th is kind of, that week is a special week at school. It's called Dead Week. I don't know how many of you have athletes. It is the only week, MISHA designates a week where no school activities, no practices, no contact can occur during that week. And so it's literally the only safe time to plan a vacation if you guys do an athlete for the summertime. And so we figured that most of our parents are planning on rolling out of town and aren't going to be here. And so we just want everybody to realize that so you do not miss your opportunity to go vote, because you can do the no excuse absentee voting now. So if you're planning on rolling out, we want you to share your voice, and you have that opportunity. If everybody will take out your phones, raise them up, and I want you to scan this QR code. Test it and make sure it works. So if you hold this up and you scan that, it's going to take you to our tornado recovery page. And so Communications Director Bill Ford has created a place where everything tornado related lives. A one-stop spot. So if you're looking at it, looks like some of you are. Is it working okay? Okay. So one thing that we found is very valuable is to put the question and answers here. So we've had some really good questions. And if you had that question, somebody else probably has the same question. So when we start seeing those reoccurring questions, we pop that up here on this website, and we give you all the facts to answer it. It's really just an ongoing, long list. There are pictures, there are videos. There are a lot of people that wanted to see what it looked like from the inside. Well, liability-wise, we couldn't really do tours, because of the damage. Quickly, mold, black mold was everywhere, and so we couldn't really let everybody in there. Even after we did some of the asbestos cleaning, it was just a liability. It wasn't safe. So there is a virtual tour that you could kind of scroll with your thumb, and you could walk up and down the halls and down and around and look, and you could turn when you're in a room and look up at the ceilings. So it's a whole virtual tour up there for you to see what it looks like. What are some other things on there?
Just some of the news media that some news coverage of the tornado up through docks.
So it's so easy to say, well, there's not been any communications. I don't know what's going on, I haven't heard, we're not communicating. So we put it all there. Any news article, any information we put out, anything related to storm recovery, there is 2 or 3 columns now where you can go back and watch a K.I.D.S video from back 16 months ago, and you can watch the K.I.S lady that showed up on Monday. It's all there in one place for you. So you can hear from everybody's perspective, not just our communications, but all the news media and everybody as well. And so one other point that I think we really appreciate the newspaper and the article that went out last week. I feel like you really helped us send that message home, and we appreciate that. The title, Now or Never. And the reason why this is a now or never chance is because FEMA has a deadline. And without upfront money, to start the work, I can't go ask for the FEMA money. I have to have upfront money to start doing the work to prove I'm paying for it, to turn around and seek the reimbursements to continuously refill the pot to get us all the way to 60 million and done. And we have 48 months to do it. And we surely wouldn't leave that much money sitting on the table. And we're going to get a $60 million project, a $60 million modern high school for 35. It's 40% off. I mean, you wouldn't pass that up. If somebody said, here's some free money. If you were provided with that type of an investment opportunity that would benefit the children for generations in this community, would you say, no, I don't think so? I think y'all just need to figure out some other way to do it. It's been 16 months. If there's another way to do it, we'd have done it. School's different than what it was. Learning is different than what it used to be. What was there needs to be better. Our kids deserve better. This town, this community, this county is better than that. Look around you. Look at the room we're in. And then get on that website and go walk around in that virtual and you look at the high school, because there's some hallways you can go down that didn't have any tornado damage. And that's because the board was being fiscally responsible and careful and not being frivolous and making do for a long time with what they had. And it is time, 70 years, it's time for something better and newer and modern. And it competes with what they got for less than what they're paying. The parents of the athletes. Look on this list and think about some of the gyms you've been in. Think about some of their football fields you've gone to. Some of the band concerts you've gone to. And think about what we've got. Think about what we could have for a much less ask. This is a God thing. What a blessing. What an opportunity. And yes, it is an ask. We are asking for you to help support this. But we're asking you to inform yourself before you make that decision. Get on the phone. Call the office. Ask them, what is this going to cost me? How much more is this going to cost me? Inform yourself. You'll be surprised. Yes, it is an ask. It is an increase. You will go from the red to the green. Your property values are going to continue to go up because you live in a beautiful community that everybody would love to be a part of. And we need a school that represents it.
Could you explain where the 60 million number came from? Could you explain where the 60 million, the budget came from? How we come up with that?
The answer to that is pretty simple. We're replacing 140,000 square feet with about 145,000 square feet. The construction company, that we have hired is Brockmiller Construction in East Milton Schools in St. Genevieve, Potosi, Park Hills, Festus. all
They
over.
built a manual Perryville also.
They built a manual in Perryville.
And 20 years after they hired them to build the addition.
They have a pretty good grasp on what it costs to build a school, and he came in with a square footage price and said, if you're gonna put back what you had, it's gonna cost you this much money. That's where the 60 million came from.
Do we need to be clear about the extra square footage? We'll get your question. So the extra square footage being added also includes our art classrooms and our special ed classrooms are in the old vocational building on the back side of Old Senior High. And so that is moving all of those classrooms in under one roof with all of the rest of the high school kids.
I've actually got a series of questions. Dr. Jones, did you read the article in the Republic Monitor last week? Was it accurate?
Be specific. 'Cause there's a couple of things I had some questions about.
Okay, well, I'm guessing one of them is kind of a discrepancy between the handout tonight and what was said in the newspaper. Okay, in the newspaper, and I'll say that they did not quote you, all right, they just said, Jones said that while they have it officially in writing that FEMA will provide $25 million for the project, okay? In the handout we got tonight, what you showed on the screen, it indicates that that $25 million consists of FEMA reimbursements, insurance, and district funding, okay? That would seem to be a pretty large discrepancy.
So we do not have in writing the exact amount that will come from FEMA.
Okay.
So that's why we have added in the other two items with it to equal that amount.
Is the $25 million estimate, is that an estimate as to what you're going to receive from FEMA?
It is an estimate, and that's all it is, and it has not been in writing from FEMA.
Okay. Might I ask, how much of the $60 million is going to come from insurance?
The insurance money has covered all of the repairs on campus.
But
So
how
are
much
you
is-
asking how much is going to just the high school building?
Correct. What is left to cover portions of the $60 million building of the new school?
Okay, so this is where it gets very complicated to explain with FEMA. And I'm probably not the qualified person to explain it. Because with FEMA, they are not going to look at the individual receipts of what I paid for each thing. They will lump the amounts of insurance. And you may have to help me, board members, on this. So FEMA, it would be in our best interest as far as getting 75% back for certain amounts to be applied to each project. So for me to say this is how much is left to go on the high school, it's not that simple because we are taking, that's why we took a global settlement so that then that can be spread out across all of these projects in order to get the most back in reimbursement for each one.
Well, the reason I ask that is
Global settlement. What is a global settlement? You just said a word that I don't think I've heard anywhere in 6 months. So what does that mean?
A single amount, just one amount, a single amount. We agreed to an amount. A global settlement. For everything, this is what we agreed to. Instead of them saying, you're going to get this for this building, you're going to get this for this building, you're going to get this for this, it's a single global amount. Does that describe it? Do you have a better, different way?
We had an adjuster that worked with us, and he worked through each of the projects.
So you got a lump sum for all the
Yes.
projects, is what you're saying?
So
Then you
we-
take that lump sum, and you're gonna wanna spread that out on each of the projects in order to bring back the most reimbursement as you possibly
And
can.
leverage FEMA to the greatest extent. And leverage FEMA.
Leverage, that's the word, thank you. Leverage to get as much of that from them, so it's less on us.
So, then the question becomes, the estimate of FEMA reimbursement, and obviously we hope to maybe even be higher than 25 million, correct? The ask from the taxpayers is 35 million, correct?
Yes.
That's 60 million. So my question is how does whatever is a portion from insurance and district funding figure into this? Because I can tell you that in the April vote, the biggest concern, I talked to a lot of people, the biggest concern was they're asking for $60 million, okay? Anybody that looked at the FEMA requirements knew that we were going to qualify. I know that it was not official, okay? And the thought was, if they get $25 or $30 million from FEMA, then what happens to it if the taxpayers have already paid for the school? Okay?
Okay.
Does the board then get a $30 million windfall?
Okay, so if that does happen, and the board has said in our recorded events that we've had, that if that would happen and there would be more that would come in, the board at that time could make a decision to spend that, we'll call it a surplus, that's what it would be, it would become a surplus. The board would have the responsibility of deciding what to do with that surplus. So the board could roll a tax back. The board could decide to do some other type of improvement on campus. The board could decide to create a fund that finances and provides for the continual upkeep to take care of what we just built. So the board would have those options.
And I think that the term options is what concerns some people. Okay? The term options doesn't obligate them to do anything, because with this particular Project K.I.D.S, and I'll just throw it out there, okay? I'm an 85 graduate of K.I.D.S, okay? I used to be a business owner in this town, all right? I am not selfish, as was intimated by a lot of people close to this project the day after the election, okay? But I do want my tax, and I'm begging to be convinced to vote yes, okay? I love the school, all right? But it concerns me that there could be a surplus in the millions of dollars that a future board has almost unfettered discretion with what to do with that surplus.
So there are some parameters there. And so, and you said the word, there could be in the future.
Those were almost your words.
And I don't know what that's going to be. The board doesn't know what that's going to be. But every year there is a tax rate hearing that the public can come to and appeal to the board and say, and share your opinion with the board.
That has been a tough question. And what we had to do as a board was we had to put a number out there that would allow us to not only start but finish the project. Not knowing what FEMA is. The more FEMA comes in, basically in the current board's opinion, we've got two options. We either cut the tax rate and hold it for 45 years, till 2045 for the 20 years, or we pay the loan off early, saving all the interest, and then cut it completely. We can cut the tax rate without any kind of a vote. But the last thing we as a board wanted to do is come and ask for 10 cents this year, and then we need another 10 cents next year. We needed to be able to do the project, and then we can refund the money if there's surplus.
Well, clearly the status quo, and even the status quo before the tornado, was not viable long-term, okay? I think the people in opposition to this, and I'm not even sure that I am at this point, okay? I feel a lot more comfortable with a $35 million ask than I did a $60 million ask. But I think we just want to make sure that there's some accountability with how excess funds are spent. And to your point, when was the last time the board without a vote lowered a levy?
I think it was about 3 years ago.
Okay.
It was actually on the chart.
It was on there.
It was on the chart.
Although, it showed it on.
Can you go back?
It showed it on.
Right there.
The word is upkeep.
Okay, but it was not specified that that was what the board did, okay? And then I didn't know if that was a Hancock amendment reduction or what. Listen, sir, I'm being polite. There's no reason to be aggressive here, okay?
I graduated in 58 from here also.
I graduated in 85 and I love it just as much as you do, okay? I'm asking some legitimate, polite questions. And like I said, I'm begging to be convinced to vote yes.
The other piece that comes in when we do the tax rate hearing in August is the numbers from the county, the assessed valuation, et cetera, go to the state auditor. The state auditor then looks at our bills and other things around us, and they send back a window that we have to set the rate in. The minimum rate for a public school system is $2.75. That is the least that the auditor will allow you to charge in taxes. So at that point in time, it was a few years back, I can't recall, I've been on board for 5 years. There was at least once that we did not take everything they allowed us to. We said we can do it with less, and we left a few cents on the board.
I think what he's getting at on this whole surplus money, as you call it, we get a surplus. Can the board make a decision before the ballot and put that out? What they're planning on doing with it? Because I've heard the same thing. What are they doing with extra money? What if there's extra money? Where's it going? Is it gonna go pay for a new football field, new soccer stadium, I don't know, new driveway somewhere? I've heard tons of things. If you get on social media, there's tons of things. And no one, well, I agree, but no one is also putting it out and explaining things. Just like this whole $60 million deal, you just said it perfectly. When it came out, $60 million, I can't swallow $60 million. But then it comes out with more information, oh, you really only need 35. I can swallow that. I'm sure you can too. I'm sure the county can swallow 35, a whole lot more than 60 or 62 million, whatever it was. There wasn't enough information for people. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm thinking he's saying the same thing. But I go back to, you guys are the board, you're the administrators. Can you sit down at one of your board meetings and say, this is what we're gonna do with the surplus money, put it in place, not wait 20 years down the road for maybe a board that's crooked or don't really care about the people that had paid this.
I understand that the board can discuss that would be their wish, but only the acting board at that time can legally make that decision. And so it really constricts because they may not be on the board at that time, and they cannot make a decision that ties their hands in the future board, is what I have no legal background. I don't think they can do that, but they are openly willing to say, these are some options that the board would think, and the community, it would be up to the community. They represent you all. You elect them to tell them your wishes of what you want to do with that surplus. Because there are people in our community that we've heard the opposite from, that have other ideas. And so that's why we have a representative board.
I guess my last point is this, okay? Do we have any thought, assuming everything goes to plan, as to how much of a surplus there will be when you consider for the district funding and the insurance?
I am not until I receive a paper from FEMA that has dollar signs and numbers on it, and I have not gotten that.
It would be more like 3 years from now, not 20.
Okay.
Receiving the last of the FEMA money, we've got to get the building, give it 2+ years.
We can't hear you.
So Mr. Bachman is,
It would be between, let's just say, we have to build the building, that takes a couple of years.
then FEMA has to reimburse us. So it would be more like 3 years, not 20. that you were referring to.
I'm not against the school. We need a school in this town. School sucks. School's been crap for many years. I mean, we went to school together. We walked the same path back and forth, sweating, getting rained on, snowed on. I'm sure he did. I'm sure everybody in here did. School sucks. It needs to be rebuilt. We need a better school. But you got to put the information out to people. Now, one thing, and someone asked me to answer this. I was reading that if it's not completed in 48 months, the project, we lose funding. Is that correct?
That is very possible. We can continuously fight to try to get extensions, but there is a 48-month window, and so if we don't get it across the line by then, we stand to not get the full FEMA reimbursements. So it is an hour never.
So what is day one of the 48 months?
From the declaration, which was in October, May.
So we've lost 3 months already?
What happens if we don't complete in 48 months? What happens to the 60 million that we're voting on? What happens to that bill? Because I'm pretty sure if I don't pay my automotive bill, I don't get my car out.
I'm here to inform you all, but you need to make an informed decision, and we've got a time frame we've got to meet.
I
So
understand the time frame, but I think people are kind of worried about that too. If we don't get the money from FEMA, who's left holding that bill? You? Me?
So the
citizens?
FEMA is not coming in, you're not going to get a check at the very end. We're going to have that process of rolling through.
Yes, they're paying as we go, I understand.
So that provides that protection of, we are paying for it as we go. So you're not going to get to the end and come up short. So worst case scenario, we don't get it, we don't get it done in time, it doesn't pass, then we're not going to get that reimbursement, and you're going to have to start cutting stuff out of the project.
So I assume that since FEMA would be paying it as we go along, that an overrun, if they decided to pull funding, would just be on that particular phase. Let's say the last phase of the construction went over. I'm sorry. Let's say the last phase of the construction went to the 49th month. Okay. Since FEMA's paying as we go along, I assume that any potential problems, and I understand there may be mechanisms in place to extend, but I assume that any potential problems would be on the reimbursement of just the final phase.
We would have completed all of that.
But the final phase is also the largest.
What do you say?
Final
The
phase. is
final
large.
phase would be the largest phase. Anyone else questions?
Is any of this money being used for anything else other than school being rebuilt?
No, we haven't. We're here to try to get the school back together, Chad. That's it.
I understand. I'm just trying to get informed here.
Do we have any kind of an estimate on the inflation rate of this project as it goes along?
Do you want to talk about the contingency built in?
As most buildings and projects that the city does and the county does, if it's a 2 or 3 year project, you have costs rising constantly. So in my knee-jerk reaction, hearing of this extra money that we may have, could possibly be ate up by our inflation economy that we're in right now. That's just my opinion.
Of course, that's possible, Mayor. One of the things or a couple of things that have been done is when we've worked with Raymond James to try to set that tax rate and keep that tax ask as low as we could, he actually has calculated interest or a rising rate, knowing that assessed valuation is going to go up, and so we need a little bit less because we're going to get more each year with rising. Brock Miller Construction has built in some contingencies and some estimates based on increased values. When all of a sudden there's a war and cost of materials triples, there's not a whole lot we can do about that or predict there. But we have done our best to plan for increases.
Isn't that part of when you do a bid and a contract with a construction company, you do have that in with your bid? I mean, I've been in construction for 18 years.
So yes, you do have that in a construction bid, and the longer, the deeper into the project you get, the closer they'll get to a guaranteed maximum price.
Right.
And once you get that guaranteed maximum price, then they have to finish the project for that. But the earlier you ask for the guaranteed maximum price, the higher they pat themselves.
Right.
So you want to hold out as long as you can on asking for that. Any other questions?
We know this is a difficult task. We know
I have a
it's
couple
hard,
questions
but
for
we
you.
can't
Do you
make
have
it
a
really
minute?
concrete.
If you can hear me?
I'm bringing it to you.
Is any of the material, I don't need that microphone, I think everybody can hear me. Is any of the material in the school reusable? Furnaces, bricks, anything that could save some money?
So some of the reusable things that we hope to be able to reuse that we've worked very closely with is in the Learning Expo. You know, we had to put this temporary building up, but we had to furnish it with lighting, desks, tables, closed caption cameras, all
Air
this stuff.
conditioning, heating units, anything that put in the last couple of years that, if nothing else, put aside, when something goes out, they have a spare. There's a lot of money tied up in a lot of that stuff. And those bricks, I would think they could be reused unless they come in contact with asbestos.
The bricks have to be, that has to, for FEMA to pay for this project, every load of bricks has to be documented, that they're hauling it off and they're putting it in the correct place. All of the bricks, all of that building debris out of the building has to be documented, every single load, and they weigh it and they take pictures of it, and it all has to go in order to get our FEMA reimbursement.
Or what about copper pipes, that type of stuff? Salvageable?
From everything I'm told, anything that comes out of that building has to be charted, sent to, the metal's being separated and sent, but FEMA has to chart everything that leaves there and in order to get reimbursed.
I haven't seen any of the pictures of the new drawings of the building. Is there going to be a lot of glass in front of it?
No.
No. Okay, the old school had a lot of glass. I went there the first year it opened, which was a long time ago. I was thinking about drive-by shooting, or the bulletproof glass. I know there's a lot of safety concerns and things like that stuff. I would suggest that the board have a field trip and go to some of the area schools that was been built by Brock Miller and ask questions, any kind of problems they might have.
So there was a lot of references and interviews and all of that done before the construction manager was ever chosen. So the board went through a whole process of hiring those individuals and went through all those companies and checked references and experiences.
And
Brock Miller built a building for us.
And we have already spoke to other districts that Brock Miller worked with to ask them about things that they would change or add to their buildings and change. We have had some of those discussions already.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
We probably need to go get a few of us up outside to go stand by the pictures and the posters. Are there any other comments or anything? You don't want to take that away from anybody?
Are there any projects left that FEMA is still determining whether to be eligible or not?
Lots.
Lots of them?
To my knowledge, we've actually been paid 2 checks. And we've done a roof on every building, HVAC, we've done windows, we've done soffit. We did the football field, we had to get all the glass out of the football field and re-sod that. Each one of those has been a specific project. To my knowledge, we've had 2 checks, but there's other projects that are close. We should start seeing more money soon, but there's lots of projects, like over 20 projects. And so far, we've gotten 2 checks.
So how accurate is the FEMA approved budget from July of 26?
So the estimate comes from FEMA will pay on the total project. So we take the total project minus the insurance. I don't have that calculation in front of me. I don't know what's on the landing page. Minus the insurance, minus this and that, and that's where that number comes from. We actually do have a company hired that is a FEMA expert that's helping handle that with us. And Pat Nader's also helping us quite a bit. And the good news about the FEMA expert is, although we are paying him to help us, FEMA has a Part Z that comes back and pays his fees in the end for helping us. So that's not even a cost to the district.
Thank you. One of the tricky things about all this FEMA stuff is there's multiple projects throughout the high school and dozens of projects, A to Z, and category Z is all the help and all the contractors and all the administrative support. But the high school in and of itself was carved out as its own project. So it stands alone amongst all the other projects of all the other parts of the declaration and the damages to the high school. So the high school sets out by itself as the 50% designation from FEMA. So that is treated differently than every other project. So the high school itself was a 50-50 designation, which is a special designation. And thankfully for our member of Congress, Jason Smith, our United States Senator, Senator Hawley, helping in this endeavor. So throughout the high school project, and it starts now with the demolition, with the 2 guys from FEMA being there constantly monitoring, there will be a scope of work every step of the project. And that scope of work has to be approved by FEMA. And so once that scope of work is approved, they will carry out the scope of work. When that scope of work is completed and signed off by FEMA, then they will request the checks and they will work with the state emergency management. And it's a very, very slow process. So every scope of work within the high school is its own, it has its own set of rules. Everything else is kind of in those categories now that they're starting to receive the checks on. So it is going to be a long process. It's very high government, very bureaucratic, but they have a good team. And I really want to, I got to tell you this on a personal note. I've worked with Dr. Jones and the board and since I've taken this position, since June of last year when all this happened. And I've seen the kind of resiliency, and you know, April was a big step, a big loss. And I'm kind of like the superintendent, Dr. Jones. I think there were some godly moments in all this because April didn't happen for a reason, and I believe that. And I believe my faith tells me things happen for a reason. God's in charge, and I'm not. And this has really gone full circle to where it was a big ask for this community, and with getting this FEMA designation has made all the difference in the world. And this is the right time. It's the right opportunity. I have so much respect for this board. They have worked tirelessly. Prop Kids Committee, how many Prop Kids are in here? Prop Kids folks? Give them a hand. They're working. They're working hard. Board, give them a hand. I'm telling you, and this lady right here, I've sat in front of her desk and in a room with her, and I've never seen the kind of resilience from some. I have grown to respect you a lot, Dr. Jones, and we're very, very lucky to have you at the helm of our high school, and I've seen some great things. We have a lot to be proud of, and this is an opportunity, and I hope we all take advantage. I hope we leave here, and there are people who are very much against this still, and I can't understand that. I've lived here all my life. I love this community. I graduated St. Vincent's, but I spent half of my junior and senior year, I lived in vocational agriculture at Perryville High School, and I loved it. It was a great experience. I love my community. I think the school is one of the best things that we can do for our future generations and for people who look here to call home. And I just hope that we carry through this. There are some naysayers out there. I think there are 10%. I think 90% of us, we just tell all of our friends and family, they'll tell their friends and family, and we'll beat them on August the 4th. And I would ask for you to consider and look at the information. They're going to give you the information because I've never seen anything quite like what you all have done from a transparency standpoint, so thank you.
So I just read on social media on a post I made for the funding for the school. And someone actually posted, why don't we build a little bit at a time, partial, and then put more cash flow as we get it into other projects? I'm just asking.
The whole 60.
The other piece to
Hop
that,
on your phone and put that back.
I'm getting ready to slam it to him. I want to know what I can put to him. I ain't got a problem.
the other piece to that is the more you build at one time, the bigger the project is, the cheaper it is.
Well, and
If we get a construction company that comes in and builds us 50,000 square feet today and 20,000 square feet next year, 20,000 next year, the price is going to go way up on the project.
not only that, but look at the difference in construction costs in 2017 versus today. I mean, you put yourself at the mercy of inflation.
Look, I'm not arguing anything.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get an answer so I can build a peanut gallery.
Sounds like he's trying to be our advocate. So his answer and Don's would be.
Well, then you, I said on my social media,
Any more questions? For the mic, there's a couple of us that will stay down here. There's a couple that'll meet you out by the boards. But I don't want to, something else?
I just had one, I want to finish with this, okay? I still have misgivings about excess funds, but on a personal level, I don't think we've got a choice but to go ahead. Even if we have misgivings about where extra money is going to go, I don't think we've really got a choice.
Thank you all for coming and showing interest. I appreciate everyone